Hey, Rob, we on?
We are live.
Hey, guys, welcome back to Sports with Mono and Mono. I'm here with producer Rob today, working the controls in the background. Um, it's the 23rd day of 2023 of April. So, weather's starting to look nice today. It's in monsoon weather last night. So, in New Jersey, at least, anyway. But welcome back, folks. And let me give an update for Steve because I know he's watching the show. Steve, the support you've gotten is amazing, and I miss you terribly, brother. We want you back on the show as soon as possible. So keep hitting them. And again, thanks to everybody for their support, and it's just been overwhelming to me, to Steve, and we just can't appreciate it enough. And I thank you. And Steve, thinking of you, kid. So let's jump into our monologue this week, which of course is sponsored by Coriano Trucking of Summerhill, New York, longtime sponsor of the show. And I just want to touch on this because I've been watching a lot of baseball lately, and these rule changes. Some of them just they bother me, I guess, right? With this throwing over to first base, you can only do it 3 times, which basically means after the third attempt, the runner can pretty much walk to second base. And it doesn't, the game of baseball is supposed to be you earn what you put out there, right? I mean, you got to earn it. And getting a base hit and, you know, being allowed to steal second base. And again, it still goes back to this the ghost runner in the extra innings, which drives me crazy. I know they're trying to speed the game up, and I will say, and I think I mentioned it last week. This pitch clock thing is good. I'm enjoying that aspect of it. That there's not a lot of just downtime in a major league baseball game. But and the one other thing is I'm not sure why you can't have. How could they outlaw the shift in Major League Baseball? Because basically, there's 9 players on the field, and you should be able to play wherever you want. I don't get it. So if a left-handed hitter, pulls the ball 90% of the time, then you should be able to play him accordingly from a defense perspective. It drives me crazy. I don't think that's what Abner Doubleday had in mind, to be quite honest. And look, there's 9 players. This is the most economical way to sort your fielders, right? 3 in the outfield, 4 on the infield, and so I don't know. I just there's some good things going on with these rule changes and some not so good things going on. But they got to get rid of this ghost runner and extra innings because that just all it is second base, and then you can lay down a bunt, sacrifice fly, game over. That's not baseball. You're supposed to earn the win. And it was 9 innings, and if it goes extra, then it's game on. Anyway, so that's my monologue for this week, and let's stick with Major League Baseball. Couple of surprise teams right now. I think probably the 2 biggest surprises is the Milwaukee Brewers and the Pittsburgh Pirates. I mean, they're actually I don't know how they're pulling this off, but they're also in a weak division. But those are 2 early surprises. I think that right now with the Mets and this whole Scherzer situation, which I don't understand this rosin bag, and he had to have known he was doing something that was bending the rules. And if Derek Cole can learn how to uh, pitch at the level that he's pitching, he's having an unbelievable season without sticky substances and whatnot. I don't know. Maybe that is a rule that I'm not so sure about. I mean, if you could put pine tar on a bat, why can't you put pine tar on a ball? I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is, but the rules are the rules, and Scherzer got busted for it, right? So he sits for 10 games, which is basically only 2 starts. But um, that was an interesting thing. I mean, they have to know these umpires are going to be checking this stuff. So if you're stupid enough to get caught with it, then you deserve to be suspended. And, he's still going to get his $40 million. But anyway, so that was a big news item in Major League Baseball. And look at this guy, Pete Alonso. This guy is like, I think either the second or third fastest to 150 home runs in his career, and he's on a torrid pace. I mean, last year we had Judge. Can we be seeing this again in New York with Pete Alonso just having a monster start to the season? And the Mets are a good team, and but right now the Braves aren't playing great, but that division is always going to be tight for the whole year. We know that. Rob.
And my Miami Marlins, 12-9, baby. We're surprising people too.
Oh, God, now it's your Miami Marlins.
It always was. Yankees and Marlins. I'm a two-sport guy.
All right. Okay. Yep. They're there. They're playing good ball. We're only 22 games into the season, so let's not get ahead of ourselves, of course.
You know what's funny, Steve? You got to read. I think it's CBS Sports. I always check like the standings every so often. Like the Pirates are doing really well. Go to all the way to the right of the standings, and they have like the odds and percentages of who's going to make the postseason. Like even the Pittsburgh Pirates that with a great start, to like maybe 2% chance right now.
Yeah.
It probably means if you go down to the local casino and put $20 down, you might get some pretty good odds if they do happen to sustain this success. And the surprising thing about the Pirates is that they lost their best player for like 3 months, Neil Cruz, but McCutcheon's having a renaissance back in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, he's been on a lot of teams, McCutcheon, a lot of teams. Yeah, okay. Well, let's see how that plays out. But of course, you don't have to go to a casino. You could sit on your couch and lose your $20 by betting with DraftKings or FanDuel and all this other nonsense. Which my feelings on that. And Rob, I looks like last week I put the jinx out on Giancarlo Stanton. I said, look at this. It's been 20 games and he hasn't been injured yet.
Thanks, Jim.
And then he pops his hamstring probably 10 minutes after the show. And I was like, this is amazing, this guy. This is amazing. And he's going to be out probably for like 4 weeks, and he was he was hitting some monster home runs, but this guy cannot stay on the field.
But the other hamstring pull is Josh Donaldson, which means now Peraza gets a chance to really.
Yes,
he can Wally Pip him right now. He can really.
Yep. Listen, I like both of those guys. I like Oswaldo Cabrera and I like Peraza. I mean, I think they deserve a chance. I'm not sure when this guy Bader's coming back. It looks like they're going to start rehabbing him, but he's another guy that can't stay on the field. So the Yankees right now, without having Derek Cole in there, would just be a 500 team.
I think Nestor's pitching pretty well too.
Yeah. Well, this guy Cole is just absolutely lights out. So either he's figured out how to do it without spider tack, or he's hiding it that no one can find it. I don't know the answer, but he's
some new version that no one knows yet. Somewhere.
Yeah, it could be like a Ron Guidry type year for him.
Could be.
Yeah.
Usually he starts off cold too, because he's like a warm weather pitcher. So usually he starts off cold, then gets hot.
That's right. You know what he reminds me of? He was just like a Catfish Hunter. When Catfish Hunter was great, he was absolutely a Hall of Famer, great. But he gave up a lot of home runs, and that's the one thing that Cole tends to do is give up home runs. And right now he's got his game going, but All right, so continue. Good luck to you, Marlins, Rob.
Hey, we swept the Guardians last night
Okay.
in a doubleheader.
Oh, but that American League Central Division, oh, it's just brutal. There's nobody. They're gonna the winner of that division is gonna be a 500 team. I can tell you that right now. That's how bad that division is. So beating the Guardians is not breaking news for me because they're just a mediocre team. Um, anyway, Rob, so let's touch base on the NHL because I'm starting to win you over. I think a little bit more. You just told me before the show you actually watched the Ranger game last night, which they lost. They're still up 2-1 over the Devils, but you know that could have been turned out either way. But the Devils, hey, give them credit. They're young. They're hanging in there. Still think the Rangers will win the series, but that was quite a game last night. It really was.
That was. I mean, like I said, I always knew hockey was an exciting sport. I just never really got into it as much. And, who knows? Now, again, I used to live in Las Vegas for a little bit there, so I kind of like, followed the Vegas team a little bit. But, I've been a Devil fan. I'm not going to say I'm a diehard. I don't own a Devil jersey right now or any jersey of hockey. But,
Yeah.
playoff hockey is exciting.
Yeah, it is. It really is. I mean, just look what's going on. Like, the Oilers are down 2-1, and I tell you, for the NHL, it would just be a win-win to get. You want to see McDavid, you want to see Draisaitl, you want to see those kind of guys in the postseason. But they're struggling right now. They're down 2-1, and I want to see this guy McDavid play because that's a West Coast team. We don't get to see him play all that much, especially after the year he had this year. 150 points, amazing.
And then,
but Boston.
So Jim, real quick, after the Devils game last night, with nothing else really on TV, I was kind of very tired. So while I was doing some last minute work on my laptop, on my iPad, I turned on the Kraken game. That was their first home Seattle hockey game in like 104 years or something.
Something like that, yeah.
Crazy.
I know. But listen, the road for sure in the Eastern Conference is going through Boston. I mean, they did stumble and lose the first game to Florida, but they're a superior team over Florida. They'll bounce back. I think they win the next two and wrap up that series in short order. And the Islanders, they bounce back. They're down 2-1 to the Hurricanes, and the Hurricanes worry me. A lot of Ranger fans I talk to say, yeah, we can handle them. That's a team that I think they'll knock out the Islanders, but I get nervous about having to play them. So I don't know whether the Rangers are going to play them or Boston in the next series, but this is playoff hockey. It's amazing. That game last night was Tampa Bay was against Toronto. That was some really tough hitting going on, and there was some scrapping. This guy, Austin Matthews, never had a fight ever and had his first fight, and he picks on Steven Stamkos. I wouldn't recommend that going forward because that guy is a warrior for sure. But the playoffs are, again, so we got Rangers day off today, but the Islanders take the ice tonight against the Hurricanes.
I think the Islanders are 1:00.
1:00, okay, 1:00. Duly noted. That should be a good game, though. So, Rod, let's move on to the NBA. And your Brooklyn Nets got eliminated last night, swept out of Philadelphia 4-0. What's your take? Are they going in the right direction?
Yes. As I mentioned a million times, we got a tremendous trade exception. Two of them actually, 18.1 million. The other one's 5 million. See, I looked at this series against Philadelphia as I knew we weren't going to win. You're hoping to win one game, maybe make it a 5-game series, get one win, right? But I think it's going to show, the ownership and management what we need. And what we need is an enforcer on this team. You need a tough
Yeah,
guy. There's no tough guy in this team. So the Joel Embiids and those guys like that are going to walk all over you, PJ Tucker, because they're tough guys and they know they can push us around.
yeah. And
So
believe it or not, this guy Harden has actually had a pretty good series too. I just all my will. I hope they get knocked out, but they had a pretty easy opening series,
hey,
and
you know what? I mean, I'm starting to really think, as mad as I was before he came to New Jersey, I was a huge Harden fan. I think he's fun to watch. He's a hell of a player. Then he came here, and then not even a half season later, he wants out. But
yeah,
I'm starting to think that's all Kyrie's issue. He came here to help, and then he saw the poison that is Kyrie Irving up close and personal and wanted the hell out.
yeah. I used to think the same way about James Harden. I mean, when he was with the Rockets, he was kind of just went about his business. He could shoot the lights out. But I think he did change. I don't blame that on Kyrie Irving. I blame it on or Kevin Durant. I'm not so sure, but he's a different player, and I don't want him to win because I think he just blows up wherever he goes, and they're not going to win if Joel Embiid doesn't come back. I mean, that much you could be sure of because the guy's having a monster season. He could quite possibly be the MVP. So we'll see how that pans out. But the Knicks are up 2-1, and the Knicks look dominating, to be quite honest with you, over the Cleveland Cavaliers. I don't think they had, the outside of Donovan Mitchell. I really looked on paper going, you know what? They're not really that good of a team. So I think the Knicks are going to move on to a second round playoff. Hard for me to imagine, and I will give this kid Randall credit. He is a pretty good player, just a troublemaker, but a pretty good player. And talking about troublemakers, I don't know whether to like him or hate him. This Draymond Green thing, he's stomping on some guy the other day. I mean, I like him because he went to Michigan State and he played for Tom Izzo, but he has got some kind of an attitude, and it's going to hurt that team. It's going to cost them. And
Well,
you know,
I think if, especially if they lose in the first round, Golden State, their big three will get broken up this year somehow. And I see Draymond Green as the guy who leaves and goes somewhere else.
yeah, yeah, but he's a defensive force that offsets the Stephon Curry and Klay Thompson scoring thing, and that's going to hurt them. They're not going to repeat as NBA champions, that's for sure. But yeah, I don't know. Steph Curry, if he's been healthy, I don't know. He just doesn't seem to have that domination momentum going like he did and lead them to the title last year. So wide open. Another interesting thing was this trash talking thing between LeBron James and Dylan Brooks. Um, what has Dylan Brooks ever done? Listen, I'm not the biggest LeBron James fan, but I think he is great. He's got a resume that's outside of Bill Russell pretty good. But Dylan Brooks getting in his face like that is comical to me. And it's good theater, I guess, for the NBA, but forget it. But the Knicks are on at 1 today, as Mike Garvey points out. So it's a good sports day. I think the Yankees might be on at 1 o'clock too, right?
Wow, it's gonna be a tough. You have a threesome today, huh?
Well, that's why we got remote controls, right? So Rob, let's jump into the NFL. Couple of big head scratchers for me. First and foremost was, this Ravens paying Odell Beckham that kind of money from a guy that's, I don't know. He's not the best wide receiver in the game. And it makes you wonder. I mean, did Jerry Jones, if Jerry Jones didn't want to pay him $15 million, what makes the Ravens think that this guy is a showstopper, especially with the quarterback situation? So, and of course, And no one could tell me otherwise, that Beckham didn't have a conversation with either Harbaugh or Lamar Jackson, that Jackson, believe it or not, is probably going to be the quarterback for this team next year. I wouldn't give you 10 cents for it. But the other big signing, I mean, he got potentially $18 million from the Ravens for a 1-year deal, which I find outrageous. Outrageous.
I think they had to overpay him, so he want to go to the Jets.
Yeah, but the Jets got a good, they got this guy, Garrett Wilson. The Jets are going to be just fine from a wide receiver's perspective. But, and then listen, it's so funny. I mean, Jalen Hurts had an MVP type year, and they paid him. So now the quarterback barometer, which it went from 30 million, right? And then Jones gets 40 million, and Rodgers and these guys, Mahomes, 40 million. So now the bar has been set. It's now 50 million for Jalen Hurts. And this was a guy that was a second-round pick. And believe me, Philadelphia fans are tough. They weren't in love with this guy. And I don't know if he's going to have this kind of season year after year, but he's getting $50 million.
Think about it, Jim. This time last year, the Eagles were not fully enamored with Jalen Hurts.
Yes.
The Giants obviously weren't enamored with Daniel Jones, and both got paid.
And what's that going to set up, Rob? What does that mean for guys like Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert, and these other quarterbacks are going to want to renegotiate their contracts?
I think at some point it's gonna be like the housing market. It's gonna burst eventually, because how do you pay somebody $50 million and still try to run a functional team?
I don't
with a salary cap.
Right. I mean, look, give guys like Mahomes and Allen credit to hedge their bets that could possibly happen at some point, and the owners collude together and say, we got to stop this. We can't pay Joe Burrow $60 million a year, can we? I mean,
so Jim, who's the greatest quarterback of all time?
I would say Joe Montana.
All right. Modern quarterback.
Modern?
I'm trying to lead you to say
obvious. Tom Brady.
All right. Tom Brady forever took less than he was supposed to make because he's a team player. Somehow, some way, someone is going to have to and it could be something like Mahomes, right? Somehow, some way, someone's going to have to step back and say, you know what? I love making $60 million. Don't get me wrong, but I want to win too. And when they start realizing that it's going to become a hindrance to sign other players, it's going to be someone's going to do a Tom Brady and say, you know what? Give me 40 instead of 60. Let's put 20 million towards our team. I want a chip. I want a Lombardi trophy.
That's not a bad point, to be quite honest, because you're right. Brady was never the highest paid quarterback in the league. Maybe for a couple of years he was, but you're right. He wasn't getting that kind of money at the end of his career, and he went back to the Patriots and then subsequently went to Tampa and wasn't making that.
Maybe it's because his now ex-wife made more than him. It didn't matter. So maybe that was part of his thinking, right? Now, Jim, real quick, another point I want to make. You mentioned the Philadelphia Eagles. Yep. I saw 2 rumors this week, recently, of, well, one big one yesterday was the Eagles trading for Derrick Henry. And you've read probably the whole offseason how the top-rated running back in the draft, Bijan Robinson from Texas, going to Eagles. I even saw Austin Eckler being traded to the Eagles. Eagles get any one of those 3 backs, we're in trouble.
Yeah, but they had a pretty good running game last year. I mean,
he's gone.
Huh?
Yeah, he's gone. Miles Sanders is in Carolina.
Oh, Sanders is gone. You're right. Yeah.
I mean, they signed Rashad Penny, who I think is going to be in my opinion, Rashad Penny would be the kind of guy I would have wanted the Giants to get and not spend $12 million on Barkley. But we'll
Yeah.
see how that works out. But any
Yeah.
one of those guys go to the Eagles, man, we're in trouble.
Yeah. Well, obviously, Rob, we have the draft coming up this week. And, I guess so there's four quarterbacks, right? We know that there's Levis, there's CJ Stroud, there's Anthony Richardson, and Bryce Young, right? I'm gonna say I've been more and more I see about this guy, Will Levis. I think he could be the first quarterback off the board in the draft. And then the second quarterback would be, I want to say CJ Stroud because I think he's that type of an impact player, but they're getting a lot of buzz around this guy Richardson. And listen, I saw him play a lot in college and wasn't really impressed. And then I think now, look, the Heisman Trophy winner, Bryce Young, I think he could be the fourth quarterback taken in the draft. That's how impressed I've been with Levis. So I'm going out and giving you my pre-draft selection of Levis, Stroud, Richardson, and Young as the first four quarterbacks off the board. Do you see it another way?
Well, most people have that the exact opposite.
I know.
I'm not one to play sports bets. It's just not my thing. But I might actually run down to the Meadowlands this week and put $20 down each on Stroud or Richardson being number one pick, because everybody keeps saying how Bryce Young is a shoo-in. Even though he's small, he has everything else he has going for him.
Yeah, I know.
So
But
it's kind of uncertainty. And like I said, any one of those. I haven't heard Levis myself, but any one of Stroud, Young, or Richardson has a chance of going number one.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's pretty good odds of you get for Stroud and especially Richardson to go number one. Which
Yeah. Well, I was talking with my one of my brothers, excuse me, yesterday about what the need is for the Giants, and we need offensive line help. We got to get a center, and I know we're big Luke Whippler guys. I've been seeing a lot of mock drafts that keep having him drop from early second round to possibly, you mentioned before the show, maybe even the third round. But there's a couple of good centers in there. Giants could do a lot worse with that, but I think they need linebacker help. So I wouldn't be. I think there's enough centers out there that the Giants could get a linebacker. Like I don't know if they could even move down and get this kid Will Anderson from Alabama, because he's a can't miss guy. But we'll see. And what are the Jets going to do? I don't know. They still got to get this Aaron Rodgers to come to work, which I guess will happen soon enough. But
I'll tell you, this whole Aaron Rodgers thing is starting to get interesting, because now all of a sudden teams are calling the Niners about Trey Lance, right? If they can get a good enough package to get some of that capital back for Trey Lance that they gave up to get him, then all of a sudden there's a need a quarterback in San Francisco. And hey, where was Aaron Rodgers from? Northern California.
No,
the Jets could be left at the altar with nothing.
No, that's not going to happen. This Rodgers deal is happening. It's just he's just figuring out how he can get the most money out of this restructured deal. And the Packers are saying, well, we're not going to give you away. But he's playing for the Jets. The Jets have, it's all but signed. I'm certain of that. And I hope it just goes crashing and burning, just like, and the Jets.
He'll be booed out of town.
Oh my God!
Every year he's gonna be booed out of town because he's never been in a major media market.
Yeah, I know.
And when he starts playing bad, like he's been playing.
Oh. Yep. So like I said, Rob, we're coming up to a good time of the year, right? We're in the midst of the hockey playoffs, the NBA playoffs. we just got finished with the Masters, so we got the U.S. Open coming up soon, and what else is coming up in less than 2 weeks, I think, from the Kentucky Derby, and I'll have my Kentucky Derby preview show. I'll bring some of that up next week. I'm actually already starting on a roll. I picked the winner of the Arkansas Derby, one of the prep races for the Kentucky Derby. So good luck to Walt Hahn, one of our loyal listeners from Arkansas. He asked me who did I like. I gave him the horse. So did he bet it? I don't know. All I could do is pick the winners, Rob, right?
Yep, yep.
So, Rob, let's move on to our random points of interest. Just a couple of things. And of course, that's sponsored by Lynch Toyota of Manchester, Connecticut. Interesting move. I not understanding why this Mike Bray stepped down as Notre Dame's all-time winningest coach to take an assistant coaching job for the Atlanta Hawks and Quinn Snyder. Something sounds goofy there. I don't know.
Well, I think again, he's a longtime college basketball coach who's now was faced with this friggin' NIL world.
Yeah, but then to go anything to do associated with coaching in the NBA. I mean, these aren't coachable players. So if he thinks he's going to come in and these guys are going to listen to him, I think he was better off staying at Notre Dame and having a job for life. It was just kind of strange. I saw that.
Did you see
Another one?
real
Yeah.
quick? Speaking of Notre Dame, next season, Notre Dame versus South Carolina women's basketball are playing somewhere in Europe. Like first time ever, a college basketball game will be played in Europe.
Wow, did not know that. That's interesting. I bet we're going to start seeing more and more of that, right? I mean, anyway, Rob. So I noticeable thing. We've been seeing this story about the Oakland A's potentially moving. So they did. They bought some land out in Las Vegas, and it just makes sense that there's going to be a team in Las Vegas.
Pretty interesting though. 30,000 seat stadium.
I know. But the thing about Oakland, I mean, when you look at an Oakland A's game, and yeah, they've always managed to win, obviously, the 3 World Series in the 70s, but it always kind of put a team on a reasonable team, Moneyball, that's the foundation. But nobody goes to those games. You see the Yankees or the Mets play the Oakland A's. It is literally an empty stadium. I mean, I don't know if it's because of the area that it's in. I mean, Oakland's not such a great area, but they are moving, and because you can't possibly sustain a major league team in this game with nobody showing up at nobody. It's amazing to see.
I think basically it's a public fan boycott at this point where they're just fed up and not going to support a team that doesn't want to be there anymore.
I guess, but I mean, it's amazing. I mean, the chances of you getting a foul ball at an Oakland A's game are probably 50-50. I mean,
Exactly.
you could probably get 5 foul balls. But the Oakland A's, they will be moving at some point because it's not sustainable. Another note, this was kind of a tragic, sad little story, was Buddy Teven, the Dartmouth football coach, got in a bike accident and actually lost a leg and spinal cord injury. And it was just like,
wow.
You hear it says, "Oh, Buddy Stevens was in a bicycle accident." Okay, people fall off their bikes, like Joe Biden. This is tragic, though. I mean, he lost a leg. I mean, from this, crazy. So I wish him the best, but he's a good, ambassador. I mean, Dartmouth isn't exactly, a powerhouse football team, but he's been there for a while, and I wish him all the best. Rob, another thing. So again, here to our points, and I don't know if it's right or wrong. I don't know, but 5 more guys got suspended for gambling. And again, I don't think all the backstory's out yet about whether or not they were gambling on their own team, on their own games. But this gambling thing is going to be it's obviously here to stay, but it doesn't have any rewards in my eyes. And um, I believe players should be able to gamble if they want, obviously not on their own teams. So the policy is the NFL is in bed with DraftKings and FanDuel, and yet these guys were betting on something other than an NFL game, and they get suspended. You got to be a little bit more consistent here.
It's a bit hypocritical.
Yeah, isn't it? It really is. But that's what the NFL is all about. They want to have their cake and eat it too, as people say, right? So. And Rob, I want to give a kind of a Rutgers baseball update because the Scarlet Knights and my connection with Rutgers baseball, nephew Brendan, pitching coach, they're starting to turn the season around. They were hovering around 500 for a while, playing down in Carolina and Florida, but they took 2 out of 3 from Michigan. They swept Northeastern. So they're back on. They got a great program going there from Rutgers baseball, and the improvements they made. They put lights in, so you got night games now at Rutgers. It really is it's a easy trek down to get to the stadium. So again, if you can't afford to spend $500 to park your car and eat hot dogs in Yankee Stadium, you can always go to Rutgers, right? Yep. Or you can go see your St. Mary's Gales, who, as you keep pointing out to me today, they're number 1 in their group.
Parochial right? B. Yep.
Yep. So
I actually have a game tonight, and you'll know this field just by when I describe it. You know when you're heading into the Lincoln Tunnel, there's that baseball field right there.
Yeah.
That's where it'll be tonight.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Whose home field is that?
That's Weehawken, but I'm actually there next week, I think, or the week after. But there's some kind of all-day fundraiser festival, and we're actually playing DePaul today.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it's gonna be right in that field that you see when you circle the into the Lincoln Tunnel.
Gotcha.
Whether if I park or not, I have no idea. I'm leaving at 4:00 to get there, so I'm imagining I have to circle for an hour just to find a parking spot. But
well, that's that's the nightmare.
It is Weehawken, so it's not like it's free.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. All right. Good luck with that.
Thanks.
So Rob, again, and I've gotten some positive feedback with our book recommendation segment. So first book I mentioned was When Pride Still Mattered, and then The Luckiest Man, Lou Gehrig's story. So this week it's a great read. I mean, it's younger kids may not know, but we lived through the 70s and the Yankees and all the turmoil but the book is called The Bronx Zoo, and it was written by Peter Golenbach with Sparky Lyle. Absolutely amazing book. Gives you the great insight into, when they signed Goose Gossage and then Reggie Jackson, and just the chaos that ensued. It was, but you know what? They won, and they won 77. They won 78. So that's a great read, though. Got to give credit to that. That's my book recommendation. I'm not deciding whether or not it's always going to be a sports book, but because I've read a lot of books, so sometimes it may be, sometimes it may not. But if you want a funny read, read that book, The Bronx Zoo.
By the way, speaking of, if you get a chance, Jim, today, I believe it was yesterday in the NJ.com, which was surprisingly not under a subscription block. Somebody, I think it's Clappish, spoke with Don Mattingly on why he took the job in Toronto. And it's a pretty good article about it.
Okay.
Why he did it.
Listen, Mattingly's beloved in New York. He is. And it's just a shame that he came 1 year short of winning a World Series. So he goes down like Dan Marino, right? One of the all-time favorites in the city, but no world championships to show.
You got to think though, if Aaron Boone really falls in his face, not saying it's going to happen soon, right? But you got to think that Don Mattingly is next in line. With the experience now, he's back in the game in the AL East, so he'll know the whole division inside and out even more so now.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, I'm not wishing any ill will against Aaron Boone, but hey, if something should happen,
yeah,
maybe he's next, and this city would explode. You think Philadelphia catches on fire when they win a championship? If New York wins a championship for Don Mattingly, the place is gonna go freaking apeshit.
Yeah, my all-time favorite Yankees manager, Billy Martin, and I know he was a tough character, but he wanted to win, man, and that's all he cared about. That's what you need. But one of our loyal listeners, Mr. James Walsh from our Long Island contingent of fans, sent me an email this morning or yesterday giving his book recommendation, and I never read it. I'm not sure why I never read it, but it was a book by Ron Luciano called The Umpire Strikes Back.
I remember.
And yeah, I mean, Luciano was maybe the all-time character umpire in Major League Baseball, and very, very funny. Made a living off being that kind of character, and he was a pretty good umpire. So James, thank you for that recommendation. Someday maybe I'll get to read that, but those are the book recommendations for the week, Rob. And we move on to our notable passing segment, and it's been, fortunately been very, very light as of late. But I remember this guy vaguely. I was young, but Dave Wilcox was a 49ers Hall of Fame linebacker in the late 60s to the early 70s. And I can always remember, and Steve and I used to talk about it, right? We had this Sunoco book that every time you got gas, you got the picture, and it was all NFL teams. And Dave Wilcox was one of the 49ers on that team. I think this goes back, and I think the Sunoco NFL book was 1972, I want to say. But Dave Wilcox, known as, his nickname was the Intimidator. So you can tell, that's when you get to the Hall of Fame and people call you the Intimidator, that speaks pretty highly of your game.
Yep, I agree.
Dave Wilcox was 80 years old. And Rob, there's a very, very notable passing because he was one of two remaining survivors of the USS Arizona at the Pearl Harbor bombing. Ken Potts was 102 years old. And sports with mano and mano, we just worship that generation of soldier, and this guy was 102 years old and survived one of the darkest days in American history. And that's certainly notable for me. Ken Potts was part of the fabric of how we survived and won World War II. And we can't ever say enough about our service men and women that gave the ultimate sacrifice and just lived the model life. And that's a big loss for me, because Pearl Harbor, I was kind of like an amateur historian reading some of the stories about how it came about and whether or not it could have been prevented. But that's certainly notable for our audience to recognize. So Rob, I appreciate you jumping in and sitting in for Steve again this week. I'm trying to work out for guest next week on the show. I'm working on something. I'll let you know during the week, and then we'll have some. And actually, he's a very knowledgeable person. So I'll leave the mystery out there in case it doesn't work out. But thanks for the producing. And again, everybody, please send us an email at sportswithmonoandmono@gmail.com. Love to hear from you. Love the suggestions like Mr. Walsh sends to us now and then, who he loved, by the way, when we were talking about these NBA players and they play when they want and they don't play when they don't feel like it. But when we reference the old days when the old Knickerbockers and Walt Frazier and all Bradley DeBuscher, awesome. Jim, thanks for constantly sending us an email with those little thoughts of yours. I appreciate it. So, Rob, enjoy your game tonight. Big
Thank you.
sports day on tap for sports fans. Most of the action tips off at 1, so enjoy it, and then go Rangers. They'll play the Devils tomorrow and try to move up 3-1. Thanks for joining us, everybody, and we'll see you guys next week. And thanks again for all the thoughts and prayers for Steve.
Take care.